Hi, everyone, and welcome back to A Talk to Remember. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in tonight. I am so overjoyed because we are starting something completely different, something completely new tonight, and I want to be able to bring it to you guys. This is something that I've told you guys about on Instagram that my sorority sister actually brought to my attention, and she wanted to learn more about these hidden gems in the Bible, and that those hidden gems refer to the women in the Bible. And yeah, we do know about Eve, we do know about Sarah, but we don't necessarily know, and we know about Mary too, Jesus's mom, but we don't necessarily know about every single of the other ones, right? So therefore, I wanted to go ahead and bring that to you, each and every one of them, not each and every one of them tonight. We're going to actually break them down into series, and tonight I'm going to go over a few of them, and then next week I'm going to go over a few more. So this entire month of May that is dedicated to basically Women's Month and Mother's Day, specifically starting today. Why not start today? So I want to go ahead and bring to you guys Eve, Sarah, Hagar, Rachel, Leah, Delilah, Samson's first wife. I believe you pronounce her name Jochebed, and Bithia. Yeah, those are some names back then, but they are so important, so vital to the text, and this relates from Genesis all the way to Judges. So that's how I decided to go ahead and break them up. So let's go ahead and get started. So starting off, of course, we're going to start with the one who came from the rib of Adam, and that is Eve herself. So with Eve, I've learned more about her than just the usual of her actually being the wife of Adam, coming from his rib, that Adam was no longer going to be the only one here on this earth, but Eve was going to join him in that. We know that she made a lot of mistakes. She made the most important, vital mistake that you could ever possibly make, which is disobeying God, in the sense that God told them to make sure they did not eat from the forbidden fruit from the knowledge of, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And she went ahead and she listened to the serpent. The enemy came in the form of a serpent and basically told her, basically twisted up God's words and told her, you know, you can eat from this fruit and or eat from this tree. And she went ahead and she did it. And so from then on, we've been having problems ever since. Thanks, Eve. But what I realized at that very moment was that, you know, as I was reading back over Genesis, in that portion, I realized that where was the communication in the relationship? You know, when we're in a relationship, we need communication in order for things to flow easily, more smoothly, right? But it seems like there was really no communication. I mean, here you have Adam. I mean, everybody blames everything on Eve, which I understand. But then you have Adam. I mean, it takes two to tango. Adam here is the very first one that was on this earth, that God created. So therefore, he had a great relationship with God. And then came along Eve, and it's just like, it just seems like all of the things that he knew with God, the relationship that he had, it just seems like it went all out the window. And it just seemed like during this situation of her actually going to the tree, now they were in a huge garden, right? On the earth, like a huge garden. None of us know how big it was, but it was massive, obviously. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're the husband, And Eve is your wife. Why is Eve going to this tree on her own? And why didn't you stop her? Like, there was so many different questions that were coming up in my mind. Like, why didn't you stop her? Where were you? Um, you know, why was there not any communication um, that happened? You, I mean, you could have known. He probably knew that she was headed to the that tree that was forbidden, and it's like he allowed her to do it anyway. And because Eve didn't have the type of strong bond, strong relationship that Adam and God had. And it was, to me, it was Adam's responsibility to make sure that they both, that he was able to teach Eve about more about God. Like, yeah, she came from his rib. Yeah, she was the first woman on this earth. Yeah, she was, she knew God, but she knew of God, but she didn't have a relationship with him. And I feel like Adam could have done his part, how we are to do our part to make sure that we are able to communicate and talk to people about God and his truth and his way of life. But it just seems like the ball dropped when she entered the picture. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and jump right into talking about Sarah. So, Sarah is Abraham's wife. We all know about that. So, before they actually moved along and actually moved where God told them to go, their names were originally Sarai and Abram. And God decided to change Abram's name to Abraham, to let him know that he was going to be the father of many nations. And that's exactly what his name means. And then you have Sarah. Sarai means quarrelsome. And now we all know what quarrelsome means, right? So quarrelsome basically means that, you're all over the place. He wanted to make sure her name was changed before she gave birth to Isaac. What I was thinking was that the reason why he wanted to change Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah, she was getting ready to receive a new beginning, which is birth. To me, birth is a new beginning, a new life. So that's where I was getting from it. I said, even though God changed her name, her ways still stayed the same. So a lot of the things as I was reading was like Sarah was just like really just all over the place. Like she had mood swings and all of these different things. Like I said, quarrelsome. Like even though her name changed, her actions were still the same. Abraham, once again, just like Adam, had this magnificent relationship with God, but he tried to help his wife out by being able to talk to her about God and know how great and amazing he is and what he said that he was going to do for their family, which is give them a son. But she was just not understand. She couldn't understand it, because here she is, like in her, I guess at this time, like late 70s, early 80s. And she's just like, really, like, I am not going to have any kids, because, if God wanted me to have kids, I would have had them by now. But here I am at a barren stage in my life, and God is telling you that I'm going to have a child. Is he serious? Like, that's what's really going through her mind. And Abraham really wanted her to understand and really get it, what he was talking about and what he was trying to tell her about God and what he was saying, but she was just not understanding. So anyway, if you go back and read Genesis chapter 16 verse 20 or I'm sorry, 4 through 6, then it really just dives into like, what? Like these people right here, these women right here were ruthless. I found out that Sarah was a controller, right? She was the control. She had the pants. She wore the pants in a relationship. She did things her way. And she didn't necessarily, like, even though, like I was saying, even though Abraham was trying to tell her what was going on, what God was telling him, she decided on her own that she was not going to go, look at things God's way, but she was going to go ahead and continue to do things her way. And each and every time, as you read and as listen to when I continue on, that each and every situation that she got herself into, it ended up badly for her because of her doing things her way instead of God's way. So if you read Genesis chapter 16, verse 4 through 6, and chapter 20, verse 14, then you will understand completely why I'm saying what I'm saying about these people being ruthless. Sarah at this time, going on 80, mid 80s, I feel like she could have gotten pregnant much earlier in her life, still at a barren age, but she still would have gotten pregnant earlier if she just would have had the faith. She was lacking faith. She didn't even have the faith the size of a mustard seed. Remember, she laughed at Jesus, or she laughed at God of what he was telling Abraham. She actually told Abraham and Hagar, well, she told Abraham to get with their maid, what do you call it, handmaiden, and basically have sexual relations with her. And Hagar is her name, and go ahead and conceive a child. And being a faithful husband, and an accepting husband, he went ahead and he agreed with what Sarah was saying, because Sarah was like, okay, if the Lord say that this is going to happen, maybe he's not talking about me, maybe he's telling you that he's going to provide us with a child through somebody else. Yeah, that's what it is. And that's not how God works, because if God says that he's going to do something, he's going to do it that specific way that he told you about. So anyway, they went ahead, they had sexual relations. Hagar gets pregnant. Sarah is obviously upset. Once again, like I said, quarrelsome. She gets upset and she's like, I want, Hagar out of this town because she doesn't deserve to be here. Her child, which is now Ishmael, her son, does not need to, he's not going to be the one that gets be the heir. And Abraham he didn't really like that, because that was, at the end of the day, that was still his son. That was the fruit of his loins. That child came from him. So, but he willingly did what Sarah wanted. So anyway, moving right along from Sarah on to Hagar. Here we have Hagar, who birthed the son from Abraham, and her son's name was Ishmael. Ishmael was the first son, the firstborn of Abraham. And she was actually the handmaiden. She was actually, I believe, a slave, and she was sold from Egypt, and she became the handmaiden for Sarah and Abraham. And she actually bore a child from Abraham. And later on, she was banished from that area, that community that they stayed in. Not long after Isaac was actually born. Once Isaac was born from Sarah, and she was, what, I believe 99. Once Isaac was born, and Ishmael at this time was probably about like 14 or something, Sarah didn't want Hagar nor Ishmael around them. She wanted to have her family. Since she finally got her family, she wanted Hagar out of the picture. She didn't deserve to be a part of the picture, and nor did Ishmael. But you know what? Because of Sarah's lack of faith, her like her willingness to love. I mean, there was no love whatsoever with Sarah in this situation, especially after she basically is the one that put her life, her husband, her family through this. You know, look, it's crazy. But anyway, later on, Abraham was, so upset, but at the same time, he agreed and did what Sarah asked him to do. Ishmael looked horrible. He looked pale. He looked frail. He looked, like he was going to die at any minute. And so, long story short, God spoke to Hagar and told her that he was going to take care of Ishmael and make sure that he had a great nation. Rachel, she was actually the favorite wife of Jacob. Now, Jacob, he actually went out to Rachel's dad and told him that he wanted to marry Rachel, that he favored her. He wanted to marry Rachel. Her dad said he had to work for him for a certain amount of time first. And then he'll go ahead and think about it and go ahead and give Rachel over to him. Well, Jacob did what he was told, and he ended up not having Rachel. So because he wanted Rachel so badly, he was persistent. And her dad said, okay, well, you'll have to work for me for 7 years, and then I'll go ahead and give you Rachel. Well, he worked for him for 7 years. The father still did not give Jacob Rachel, so therefore Jacob had to work for him for 7 more years. So this is all in a total about like 14 and a half years that this man had to work for him in order to get Rachel, to have her as his bride, as his wife. Between that time frame, Jacob, because he was not able to get Rachel, how her dad was just so like conniving in this way, and just like, he made sure that he gave not Jacob Rachel, but he went ahead and gave Jacob Leah, who is Rachel's youngest sister. Well, he didn't really favor Leah. He didn't really see her as, someone that he really wanted to marry. But he accepted it because I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he's accepting this, then obviously he wants to do right by her dad so that he's able to get Rachel in the end. And it eventually worked out. After those 14 and a half years, it eventually worked out. And Jacob was able to finally have Rachel. Leah ended up having children. She immediately got pregnant. But Rachel, on the other hand, was barren. And back in those times, it was like a privilege, or it was letting you know, like, that you have someone to take over, your property, your land, whatever you had before you die. You have offsprings that will actually, take up all of your whatever you possessed, all of your belongings and things of that nature. Rachel didn't have any children at this moment. She was very bitter, very upset. She was just like Sarah. And as you can tell, there's a pattern between Sarah and Rachel and Hagar and Leah. Like, it's crazy. But anyway, Rachel got upset with Leah. She treated her badly, and Leah kept getting pregnant like this and kept getting pregnant. And Rachel went ahead and told um, Jacob to sleep with their co-wife, because back then they had numerous wives. So um, Rachel told Jacob to go ahead and sleep with Bilhah, who is one of their co-wives, and allow that child that she has to basically be Rachel's, just like what Sarah did with Hagar. Um, and Bilhah kept getting pregnant and everything, and so then all of a sudden it, fast forward, it became like they had beef. They were going at it, and they were having kids left and right. Leah had one of her, one of the other co-wives, um, um, have a child for her, and all of these other things. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like what is going on here? It was just so crazy. At the end, the two sisters, like Rachel finally had her kids. She ended up having actually two from her own womb. Say that at the end, they do say that Rachel did die young, and I really do feel like it was because of her bitterness towards Leah, and wanting so much. And it also, I mean, you could already see the tree, the family tree of these people. Here you have, the first family of Adam and Eve doing wrong, and basically telling Adam what to do. And then you have their kids, their offsprings. You have Cain and Abel, and you know that one of them killed the other because of jealousy. Then you have Then you have Sarah and Abraham, and Sarah not getting pregnant right away, and she's very bitter, very upset, and things of that nature. And then she has Abraham go ahead and sleep with Hagar, their handmaiden, and then she gets very upset and jealous about that. So she tells her, after Isaac is born, to go ahead and leave out of the community because you ain't welcomed her. And then you keep going down and you see Leah and Rachel. Now Rachel is the favorite, it's the most sought after, but she can't see it like that. She's not worried about that because, like I said, when you have kids, that's the most important thing. When you don't have any kids, you feel like you are nothing, like you don't have no life, no reason, like your life is unimportant. um and so that's how she felt. And she got upset and bitter and angry with Leah because Leah was having all of the kids. And so she had Leah, I mean, she had her, the co wives go ahead and have the kids and basically have them for her. And I mean, you can see a pattern where Eve didn't listen to God. You see Sarah didn't listen to God. You see Rachel didn't listen to God. Like there is a pattern here in every single one of them. This is the family tree of chaos, and it starts all the way up at the top. And it's just like, oh they, like, oh my gosh, are you serious? But anyway, moving right along, let's go ahead and get right into Delilah. Now I know that we know about the Samson and Delilah. Actually, I'm gonna go with Delilah first, and then I'm gonna go with Samson's first wife. But with Delilah, she was actually the trickery and the foolery with it. Like she didn't really want Samson. She was out to get him, and what she was out to get him for money. That was her reward. If she did what Philistines wanted her to do, then she would get the money that she wanted. So that's exactly what she did. She went ahead, and after Samson did what he did with the Philistines, and basically going against what God told him to do, he basically lost his powers, lost his anointing, lost sight of God. That's really what it was altogether. Like the Lord was not on his side anymore. He lost sight of him. He was basically all alone. And Delilah, while she was here in the picture, she became the second wife to Samson. And she actually, as you would read in Judges chapter 6, Judges chapter 16, verse 6, she actually was the one who basically was trying so hard for Samson to reveal the reason why he was so strong, he was so powerful, and he played and toiled with her um, for a while, as I read in Judges chapter 16. And then he finally gave in and went ahead and exposed the real reason as to why he was so strong. Now, I don't understand. The question that I have with this is like, why are you toiling with her this entire time? But at the end of the day, you still went ahead and you gave her the actual reason as to why you were so strong. Like, does that even make any sense? I just don't know. Don't understand. But anyway, that's what happened with Samson and Delilah. Now let's go back a little bit further before Delilah, and let's go to his first wife. Now they really don't. They had it on online, but I said that I didn't want to really go online. Go by the online name that they had for her. I wanted to go by the name that they had for her in the Bible, which they don't say her name in the Bible. She's just Samson's first wife, and they actually fell in love. They were true soulmates. That's who he was truly supposed to be with. But let me just tell you, she was tricked. Once again, a trick. She was tricked by the Philistines, and the reason why she was tricked and how she was tricked was because the Philistines basically told her that if you don't give us the riddle, and it was all about a riddle, they wanted to be first, they wanted to be in control and stuff like that. So anyway, they gave a riddle to Samson. Samson went ahead and figured it out right away. Samson gave them a riddle, dumb. Samson gave them a riddle, and they couldn't figure it out. They went 3 days without trying to figure out or without knowing the answer to this riddle. They got fed up. They were upset. They wanted to know desperately over a riddle. Really? They really wanted to know the answer to the riddle. So therefore, they knew that they couldn't go directly to Samson, because Samson said, no, you got to figure it out. And this is what I'm going to do. It was some things, I'm not going to go all the way deep into it, but it was some things that, Samson said, well, if you can't figure out the riddle, the answer to the riddle, then this is going to happen. And so they couldn't figure it out. They got very upset. They wanted the answer, so they went ahead and they went after his vulnerable wife. So therefore, she went ahead and they said they threatened her life, and her family's life. So she went ahead and she went to Samson. She was like, babe, I need the answer to that riddle. And so she got to the point, because he was not going to give it to her. He was like, I didn't even give it to my parents. What makes you think that I'm going to tell you? And she got very upset and started crying, and she was just like, oh my gosh, you don't even love me, and all of these other things, blah, blah, blah. And I just, and so he went ahead and he gave her the answer to the riddle. She went ahead, she gave it to the Philistines. The Philistines told, Samson what it was. Samson obviously found out that his first wife gave it to the Philistines. That's the only reason why they knew the answer. And at the end, she died anyway. She and her father were actually thrown into the fire. So let's go ahead into Jochebed. So Jochebed is the mother of Moses. She is the birth mother of Moses. She actually sent Moses down the Nile River after the king in their area wanted to kill all of the firstborn children, the firstborn sons in that community. And she was like, oh no, not my child. Let me go ahead and hide him, and they hid him for a very long time until they couldn't hide him anymore. But she wanted to make sure that he was safe. Sent him on down the Nile River, and he ended up in Egypt. It's so powerful to know that you have such a heart for your child, that in order to keep them safe, you give them up. That immediately made me think of people, women who don't necessarily have the resources um, to be able to take care of their child. So they want them to have what they didn't have. They want them to have a home, a stable home, a loving family. And they do it out of pure love by giving their child up for adoption, because yes, they did get pregnant, and yes, they could have terminated the pregnancy, but they didn't want to do that. They saw something in their child. They saw something that this is a part of me. Why do I want to do that? And they went ahead and they actually, gave their child away basically to someone else. And it takes darn good courage to make a sacrifice like that and say, you know what, I'm not able to do it, but I know that someone else can, and I want to make sure that my child goes to an amazing home, for someone to be able to take care of them the way that I was not able to. Bethiah is the daughter of Pharaoh, who actually finds Moses floating down the stream. She picks him up and she basically adopts him. And she actually knows who he truly is, which, knowing that he is an Israelite, but she keeps that from her father, and she keeps that from the palace, she keeps that from from everyone, from knowing. She keeps that as her little secret, to basically make sure that he's safe. She had a heart, and she felt sorry, like, this child is literally floating in a basket down the river. I mean, you would do nothing but pick that child up and raise that child as your own, to give them love, family, you know, a life that they deserve, that they need. So that was amazing. So after we start out with chaos, we end on a great note with Bethiah. And yeah, it just goes to show you that, yeah, you do have a chaotic family. We are a part of this lineage that started with Adam and Eve and going all the way down, even after Jesus Christ coming. We come from this entire lineage, and yeah, we got crazy, and we have a heart. Thank you so very much once again. I truly appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys next week. But until then, happy Mother's Day. I love you guys. Stay blessed. See ya. Bye.